Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our course registration webinar. We're so excited to get this underway, but we're just going to give everybody a moment or two to join us. I can see we have attendees from all over the world, lots of familiar names. I'm seeing some of our scholarship recipients. And I was just talking with our academic advising team before we launched this webinar. We're so excited for this time of year. It's lovely seeing all of these students with whom we've been working throughout the year, and in some cases, the past couple of years, converge in this virtual space, getting excited for their next steps and next chapters. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your day, your night, your morning, wherever you may be joining us from to talk with us about course registration at St. Thomas. We're thrilled to talk with you. So on that note, I am going to get started rather promptly tonight because we have much to discuss. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of working with or talking to just yet, my name is Christy Flood and I work as the Director of Student Recruitment at St. Thomas University. But I always say, more importantly, I'm a really proud STU alumna. My time since I've graduated is starting to grow and grow and grow each and every year, but it feels like I was in your shoes just yesterday. And I know that this can be a time that is fraught. It's full of a lot of excitement, but it also can be nerve-wracking. You finally have a lot of flexibility and independence, autonomy and agency to choose things that interest you, but it's so much freedom and flexibility compared to what you're used to, which can be a little bit different and exciting, but nerve-wracking as well. So thank you again for taking the time to join us. We're so thrilled to be talking with you folks about course registration. This is the first of many webinars that will be specific to the course registration process, but it's the key, pivotal, paramount one that will really give you the fundamentals of what course registration looks like, what courses are available to you, what to keep in mind, all of that. So before we get started, I would like to mention that St. Thomas is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik and Mi'kmaq people. And I'm so fortunate and thrilled to be joined by our academic advising team, Kelly and Allison, tonight. So I'm going to turn the mic over to them to introduce themselves. Kelly, I'll let you get us started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Hogg, and I'm one of your academic advisors, with Allison Bellier being the second. Like Christy said, course registration is one of our favorite times of year. It's very exciting, but we know there's a lot of questions around it. And I remember back to me being a student that it was really one of the times that it really felt real that I was attending university and I really wanted to make the right choices. So we're here to ease your mind about that process a little bit and to kind of reinforce that there are no wrong choices and help you get your courses all picked. So Allison, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Allison Bellier, like everybody said, and I'm also an academic advisor here at STU, and I have been here for a very long time, which is good for you. And my favorite time of year is when you arrive in September and I actually get to see your face. I like to talk, so I'm hoping you'll stop in maybe after the busy time and get to know us a little bit. But it is a good idea to have a relationship with us and check in with us every now and then. And yeah, so off we go.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. And I will just kind of harp on some of the things that Kelly and Allison already mentioned or alluded to or just embodied by virtue of being who they are. At STU, we really are very family oriented. We're here to support our students. So we don't want you to feel like you're a burden or a nuisance if you're asking a lot of questions. We want to help you through this process and ensure that you feel as confident and comfortable as possible with all of the decisions that you're making. So on that note, just a bit of a housekeeping item. For those of you who haven't joined one of our virtual events in the past, we do things a little bit differently for these. So you aren't going to be on camera. Don't worry, like if you're lounging on the couch, your camera won't accidentally turn on, and you can't say anything orally. So the way that we want to hear from you tonight, just to keep everything organized and ensure that we get through as many questions as possible, is through our typed Q&A. So if you haven't used that before, towards the bottom of your Zoom, depending on what kind of device you're accessing discussing this through, there should be a Q&A box. If you want to submit any questions there throughout tonight's program, we strongly encourage you to do so. Some we may preemptively address throughout tonight's presentation, but others we may not have any plans to address. So we really want to get to all of those questions. And like I said, ensure that you feel really confident and comfortable in what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be selecting for your courses, etc. So please feel free to submit any questions you have there. And I do just want to go through what we'll be discussing tonight throughout the program. So you have a roadmap of what we'll be doing. So we're first just going to be touching upon course registration basics, ensuring that you have those fundamentals down so you can kind of understand the rest of what we'll be discussing this evening. Then we're going to talk through the actual steps of how to register for courses. So we're applying some of that fundamental knowledge so you know what steps to take to ensure that you're successfully registered for courses for fall 2023, which I cannot believe is coming just around the corner very quickly. We're also going to discuss some frequently asked questions. These will be helpful in getting you a sense of what questions may come up as you're undergoing the course registration process. So perhaps you're not thinking of them right now during this webinar, but perhaps you would be otherwise on Tuesday of next week as you register for classes. They also will be helpful in possibly getting you thinking of some questions that may be specific to your situation that you can enter in that typed Q&A box. We're also going to have a live question and answer. So for those questions that we're not addressing preemptively throughout tonight's program, we will try to answer as many as possible orally. So Allison and Kelly alike will be fielding those questions. If there's any that are more general in nature or admissions related, I'll take those. But for any that we don't have a chance to discuss orally as a group, we'll have some of our admissions counselors actually in the background. So many of the people with whom you've been working, we have Hannah and Muchinetta, we have Louise, we have Alex. They're all here to answer your questions as well. So we have a full team of people committed to helping make this possible as smooth and stress-free as possible. And then finally, we have just different ways to keep in touch. So we'll kind of end it with calls to action, next steps in terms of further webinars, ways to be in touch with your admissions counselor and other members of the STU community throughout this process, just to ensure that your questions are addressed as they come up, because inevitably, you're not going to think of them all tonight. So on that note, I am going to turn things over to our academic advisors to get us started discussing course registration basics.
Okay, so we'll dive right into things. Our first tip for course registration basics is to make sure that you are referring to the resources that were sent out to you by the admissions office, stu.ca/register. It walks you through every step of the registration process. It'll preemptively answer some of your questions and also help you troubleshoot if along the way something comes up and you wanted a chance to kind of review the information. Really good resources there. So you don't need to rely on us. You absolutely can still use us, of course, if you have questions, but referring to the resources are really going to help you if you have any issues along the way. The second part is kind of the beauty of St. Thomas is you get to register in courses that interest you. So part of the fun now is that you're able to really tailor a schedule to your own interests, to your own strengths. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming not even knowing where to start with that. So again, looking through the resources, reading through some of the course descriptions, familiarizing yourself with what some of the subjects are, what the courses might mean, that's a really great place to start. And if something kind of jogs your like, ooh, what is that? That looks kind of cool. Your first year is all about exploring some new subjects, really stretching yourself, learning more, and being able to chance to grow and try new things. So it kind of will roll into some of these other points here. What you select on Tuesday, I think it is Tuesday, the 18th. It's not set in stone. So that is when course registration opens up, but you can keep making changes to your schedule right up until classes start in September for first term and January for second term. So if you, I don't know, have an epiphany over the summer and you think, oh, actually, I want to try psychology. I didn't initially have that. You can make changes to your schedule right through there. And as I referred to, you'll be registering for both semesters at the same time. So both your fall term and your winter term. both at the same time is best, especially for anybody on student loan. You want to make sure that you are registered as a full-time student in both semesters. And kind of the big point that I think we're probably going to repeat quite a bit here, and you might have already heard us say it at the open house, but there's really no wrong choices. And I know how much pressure there is to try and get the right courses, but there's nothing wrong to pick at St. Thomas. We've got a lot of broad ranges of subjects and courses and professors. And really, we want you to take a broad range of things. And like I said, really stretch yourself. Uh, so that being said, there are a couple little pointers that we have just to make sure that things are a good fit for you and that things are going to move smoothly moving forward. So I did want to show you some of these here right now. So there are a couple subjects that have multiple first year courses to choose from. So ideally, don't pick too many from the same subject. So 2 courses in one subject across the year is what you're looking for. There are some subjects like philosophy, history, fine arts, those off the top of my head, that offer multiple first year courses. So just pick 2 max of those. um, and also, the beauty of the liberal arts is it's meant to give you breadth in subjects. So we want you to not register exclusively in subjects that are all humanities or all social sciences. We want you to get a mix of both. And finally, I guess our last little tip here is just to make sure that you're giving yourself a balanced schedule. So making sure that you're not overloading all of your classes on the same days of the week. I know it's going to be tempting to give yourself a long weekend and not have classes on Mondays and Fridays. In theory, that might be ideal, but in practice, it really doesn't set you up for success. You want to make sure that you're dividing your classes evenly throughout the week. And also making sure that you're picking course times that are going to work for you. So if you're not a morning person, you don't have to take 8:30 morning classes. And same thing as if evenings are not your most productive time, that you can avoid that. Our first year courses, we offer a lot of different choice usually within the same class. So we're going to talk about it later, but one psychology class is going to be offered multiple times that you can pick which one works best for your schedule. So it's kind of fun, and it's a bit of a puzzle with moving pieces, but we're here to help you get it sorted. And we've got some tips on that here as we move through. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Allison to talk about some more of those basics.
Okay, so you may have noticed if you've looked at courses at all that it'll have a subject like SOCI or sociology, and then it'll have a number like 1006 or 1016, and then it'll have a letter after it, perhaps. So what is a credit hour? A credit hour is a unit of value, part of a course. Courses at St. Thomas are either 1 credit hour, 3 credit hours, or 6 credit hours. Generally, the 1 credit hour courses tend to be in the fine arts department, and they tend to be like a practical kind of thing. Regularly, courses are 3 credit hours or 6 credit hours. So for all intents and purposes, for your first year, you're probably mostly going to be running into 3 and 6 credit hour courses. A course that's 3 credit hours is just 1 semester. And then at the end of the semester, you get a final grade for that course. A 6 credit hour course is at the same time in both semesters with the same professor usually in both semesters, and you don't switch like after Christmas. You don't switch into another. You stay in the same course, and you need to finish the course in order to get the credit hours at the end. So at Christmas in a 6 credit hour course, you get a midterm grade that you can see, but then it kind of disappears and you have to finish the course in order to get the credit hours. There are a few courses in fine arts that are 1 credit hour. And if you end up taking a 1 credit hour course, it is important to remember that it will block. So you can only take, you're going to take 5 courses a semester, which is a regular course load. That's generally what the students will take, is 5 courses a semester, regular full-time load. If you do 5 courses a semester for 4 years, you end up with 120 credit hours. However, if you sign into a 1 credit hour course, it'll take a spot in your registration of 5 courses. So you may need some extra help to get into a real 5th course. You can actually take a 1 credit hour course in addition to your 5 regular courses, but that's it. Sometimes if you're doing like a voice course or something like that, or Stu Singers, there's dance technique, there's like different courses. They're just sort of like a side, and you do get a credit hour for it. And so if you take 3 times, you get 3 credit hours for it along the way. The letter at the end of a course, so you might come across, you might see like English 1016A or English 1016C. What does that mean? Those are different sections of the same course taught by different people, offered at different times, so that you can make a schedule. And you'll find with most of the departments will have several different sections of their introductory course. And so the letter indicates, well, if you were to explain it to somebody, I'm registered in English 1016C, then I would be able to tell which course that is. If you just tell me you're registered in English 1016, I know what the course is, but I don't know who you're taking it with. I don't know what time it is. So they all have like a different time that goes with them so that you can make a schedule. You spend about each class is 3 hours of class time a week. And you can, if for each class hour, I say you need to spend about 3 hours time outside of the class on homework. Not everybody does that, but at least 2 hours per hour in classroom, outside the classroom, I think, to be successful. But generally the classes are 3 hours. They either meet once a week, which are usually the higher level courses, and they meet it in the evening. They meet twice a week, or they meet 3 times a week. If they meet 3 times a week, it's a 50-minute class, and that's probably more what you're used to. If they meet twice a week, they're usually an hour and 20 minutes. It looks like it's an hour and a half, but you usually are out about 10 minutes before the end of that time, so you have time to switch between classes. And that might come up later on, but don't be too concerned. If you've got 2 classes, one is ending at 10:30 and the other one's starting at 10:30 and it's in a different building, that doesn't mean you can't take it. You will have enough time to get from one class to the other, even if you're down in M and Casey and your class is up in Holy Cross. You will have enough time. Everybody deals with that, and you won't be able to avoid having some classes back to back. And in some cases, it's good to do that. It keeps you kind of going for a couple of hours, then have a break for lunch, and that kind of thing. The semesters begin in September to December. I don't know the dates. I'm not that far ahead. And January to April. Intersession summer is a different beast. The regular academic year, the semesters go from September and in December, January to April. And I will pass it on.
Okay, so the fun part of course selection is actually starting to build your schedule and making some decisions about what you want to take. There's a couple different ways that you can search the course offerings. So there is a list there at that first link, the first year courses, and there's a link off to that on the stu.ca/register page that you would have all been sent. The other thing that you can do to look at the courses is to actually look at the our Stu self-service, which is what you're going to be using to actually register for your courses. So that I prefer personally because it will show you who's teaching it, how many spots are left, and you can actually kind of jumpstart the registration process right through Stu self-service. It also gives full course descriptions. It'll let you know if you need anything before you take that course, if you need to have a background. So if it's a music class, do you need to have a music background in it, or can you be brand new to music theory? So I really like looking at the course description to find out a little bit more. Now, if anybody has been looking at the courses on Stu Self-Service, you may notice some have no seats left, especially the first year courses. And I just want to highlight not to panic, because the reason they have no seats is because we are holding them for you. Our upper year students are going through course registration just over the past couple of weeks here, and we've only allowed a certain number of upper year students to register in first year courses. So right now, all of the spots are being saved for you, and you will notice those numbers and the seats left in the courses, you'll notice those numbers increase just before you register on the 18th. So there'll be a nice little jump there for you folks to register. So yeah, building your schedule. This kind of goes into what I was saying earlier, but you're going to be choosing 5 courses to take each semester. So both for your fall term and for your winter term. Keep in mind what Allison was saying about those 6 credit hour courses. They are full year. So if you have one of those in your schedule, you need to make sure that it's in your first term and in your second term in the same spots. Um, just because it's full year, you need to account for it in both spaces. There's a few different ways that you can build your schedule depending on works for you, and we're going to highlight a couple of them here for you. So for those of you that like to have a list, I'm a very visual person, so I like using all of these steps. So find what courses you want to take. You can write them down, make sure that you have 5 in first term, 5 in second term, and we have a fillable course registration sheet to help you with this. So you can write down your 5 courses, the sections you want, which semester it's in, the days of the weeks, and the times. That is also on that webpage, that handy webpage that we're going to keep referring to. We have a sheet to that fillable form. So you can see, for example, some of the things that we were talking about earlier. This person has a mix of some criminology intros, sociology intros. Now sociology 1006, it ends in a 6. So you can see it's on there twice, both in first term and second term. A lot of our intro courses have different ways to get the intros for it, which is another thing that comes up. So sociology, it's a full year course, full year intro course. You take 1006 and that's what you need to move on. If you already know, I want to study criminology, how do I make sure that I have what I need for criminology? You need 2 classes, Crim 1013, which you see there, and Crim 1023, which you also see on here. So a lot of our subjects do have a 2-part intro like that: criminology, psychology, economics, I think, environment, society. You'll notice there's a 1013 and a 1023, and you have to take both, but it doesn't necessarily matter what order you take them in. So some are full year, some are 2 parts, and then there's some that I mentioned, like philosophy and history and fine arts, that there's multiple first year classes that you can choose and you pick 2. So it's not that you only have 2, it's you get to pick which 2 you want to take. If you have any questions about what subject, like what you need to go on in the subjects that you're interested in, of course, we're here, and your admissions counselors are here to help you out with that. But it is usually in the course description, you'll see as you're searching the subjects and seeing what's being offered in that subject. It'll make a little bit more sense once you're actually in there and writing it. Right now, it's all a bit hypothetical, but once you're in there and working on it, it starts to come together. So another way that you can help build your schedule is actually seeing it on a timetable. For me, this is what I really liked because I could see exactly how it mapped out in a day. I could see which classes I had on which days, how much time I had in between, so I could plan my lunch and snacks and all that. So this is what I personally really liked. And Stu Self-Service actually offers this as you're going and selecting your courses, which ones you want to take. It will map it onto a visual calendar like this as well. So you can do it manually, or you can allow self-service to help you with this step. But you can see this was the, sorry. I have so much to say, I can't help it. So you can see this person has classes back to back, like Allison had mentioned. That is completely fine to have classes in 2 time periods, one after the other. It does give you plenty of time to get to the class. So yeah, that's kind of how scheduling works. And we are going to jump into a little bit more of the registration stuff. So I will kind of continue on into this. We can't stress this enough, is watching the how-to video. Admittedly, this is a new program for all of us on campus, as we did just switch to self-service. But the feedback we're getting from students is that it's quite intuitive. It really helps you along in the registration process and helping you plan. It also helps you see if you have two classes maybe that conflict. So maybe two classes that you really wanted to take are actually at the same time and there's a time conflict there. So it will actually prompt you to see if there's another section that you could swap to help resolve that conflict. So like we said, a lot of our first year courses offer multiple classes to pick from, multiple sections. So oftentimes if there is a conflict, you can find another way to resolve that by moving something around. It can be a little bit frustrating when you have your ideal schedule potentially mapped out and then something doesn't quite go right and you have to go back and move things around a little bit, but it does work out. I want to reassure you that you will find something that fits, and it is a bit of a puzzle time sometimes to make it work. This video that we've established will really help you through the process, right from logging in to searching for courses to adding and dropping. So it's actually really great to watch this video both before you start to work in self-service and also after, when you actually start getting into the registration process. Because if you want to make changes or add and drop classes, this walks you through every step of the way. Okay, so our next slide here is actually using Stu Self-Service to help you log in and register for courses. So the link is there, and there's also a link to that on the bottom of every St. Thomas webpage if you scroll to the bottom of it. If you click login, it'll prompt you to enter your user ID and your password. The important thing to remember when you're using your user ID trying to log in, make sure that you don't put @stu.ca. It is just those 4-letter HX something something something, just those 5 letters that you put in and the password. If you're not sure where to find that, you can find that on your next steps page at your portal, your student portal that you went through the admissions process with. Once you hit submit, it'll have kind of a menu options for you to see. And for you folks, for course registration, you want to search the course catalog and then follow the steps that are outlined in the video to see the courses that are available and build your schedule. Okay, moving right along in here. How do you register for full year courses? So we've mentioned term-based courses, the ones that end in 3 credit hours, and full year courses, the ones that end in 6. Full year courses are a little bit trickier if you have them in your schedule, because you do need to make sure that you have them in both semesters, your first term and your second term. When you're actually making your schedule and do self-service, make sure that you're adding it into both semesters. If you forget that step and you go to register, the registration process will know, our program knows that it's a full year course and it'll auto enroll you in the second. But if you haven't thought of that and had other things, it won't let you register in what conflicts in the second half. So just make sure when you're planning that you're adding it in both semesters so that you don't have to change things after. The same thing is if you initially register for a full year course, but then change your mind and you decide you don't want it, make sure that you drop both parts. You have to drop the second part and the first part from your schedule. So you don't want to accidentally have one half of the course and it be blocking something else. So just make sure you drop both parts in that. We also have a couple courses that are a little bit, they work a little bit differently, and we get asked about them every year, and they cause a little bit of, not confusion, but just they work a little bit differently. So we wanted to highlight those courses specifically here in case there's questions. So I had mentioned earlier that Fine Arts does offer a number of first year courses. There are 2 courses in particular that work a little bit differently than most of our courses. So Fine Arts 1733 and Fine Arts 1743. If you've already looked on the course schedule, I wrote down the names of these because I know the course codes, but not the names. So that's Intro to Musical Theater is one of them, and Music Literature for Actors and Dancers is the second one. There we go. So if you're thinking about taking either of these courses, the thing to remember is that these are a little bit different. They actually have to be taken together, that you can't take one without the other. You have to take both at the same time. And these are the exception to the rule of how many credit hours a course is worth and how long it runs for. So even though these end in a 3, these are odd in that they actually go all year. So if you want to take these courses, you have to take them together and you have to have them in both semesters, first term and second term. Because they're only worth 3 credit hours and not 6, you also need to have 6 courses in your first term and 6 in your second in order to have a full course load. So if you do plan on taking these courses, just keep those things in mind that you do need to account for that because they do work a little bit differently. Okay, I'm gonna pitch it over to Allison to talk a little bit about Aquinas.
Okay, well, the question is, how is Aquinas English different than regular English? And all of the sections of English would be a little bit different from each other because they're all going to be taught by a different person. And even if the same person taught 2 sections of intro, they might do different things in each one. So each section of English is going to be a little bit different, not going to be exactly the same. However, in the Aquinas program, you're also taking 2 other courses at the same time. So there are 3 full year courses intertwined. They're mostly taught on Tuesdays and Thursdays. In fact, if you're taking Aquinas, you don't take other courses on Tuesday and Thursday because they want you just to be free for that. You're with the same, I think, 30 people for the whole year for all 3 courses. And then it's 18 credit hours in the end. It is an experience. There's lots of discussion. In terms of how each course is different, they are taught interdisciplinarily, but you get the same kind of content. You get the same expertise out of the course. You get the same foundation out of the course that you need to move on in English and whatever the other 2 subjects happen to be, whether they be political science or philosophy or English or whatever they are. You get the same. So if you then in second year want to continue on in English, then you continue on in English. You have the requirement, as you would see, because when you go to try to register in your second year classes, it will give you you have the prerequisite. So it functions in that regard exactly the same as a regular 6 credit hour course in the department. Want to talk about French, Kelly?
I was just looking at the course codes so that I made sure that I got the right ones. For anybody that is considering taking French, we do offer different levels depending on what your level of French proficiency is coming into St. Thomas. So we have 1016 that assumes that students do have a little bit of a background in French and have, I think it's basic or basic plus proficiency. So they've taken it to high school and do have a little bit of proficiency. There's also 1026, French 1026, for those students that have been in French immersion or have intermediate plus, so a higher level of proficiency. Now, we may have some students that are coming in that already are completely bilingual and don't need to take a French introductory course. So in cases like that, we can work with the French department to see what is an appropriate French class based on your level, and perhaps you don't need to go right into an intro course and can take second year French. Our French department actually is quite good at working with students, and they want to make sure that you are taking the appropriate level of French class for what your level is. So that's something to keep in mind, that you can work with the French department and reach out to them to see what is the best class for you based on what your French knowledge is. If you have no background in French, have never spoken the language before, there is typically a class that's offered in the summer. It's not usually offered during the regular academic year, so that's an option, is to take it during the summer. And there's also a possibility to take a French intro at UNB if you have no background. So lots of different options for French depending on what your proficiency level is. The other thing I'll say on that is, if you get into a class and you realize that it's not the right level of proficiency, either it's too easy for you or you're like, nope, I think I want to be in an easier French class. I do not understand any of this. Both our 1016 and 1026 classes are at the same time. So you can, within the first couple days of the class, you'll be able to make that determination, or the faculty member will help you kind of identify that it might not be the great fit for you and will help you switch into the other class. Okay, and I think the last thing we wanted to talk about was IB and AP credits.
Yeah. So if you've taken advanced placement or international baccalaureate and you believe that you've gotten yourself some university credits, once you have access to your transcript, and I know you don't have it for a while yet, I know that they're not really available until later in the summer. I think with AP anyway, they will ask if they will send one copy somewhere. So make sure you have it sent to St. Thomas right away. We want to make sure, like if you think that you've got the first year English course because you took it in AP, then we want to know that. I don't want you to take it over again. So go ahead and register on Monday, but then maybe reach out to us if you are thinking AP is coming along and you're gonna have those credits. You could reach out to either the admissions counselors or academic advising, because I would do something a little different with you just in case. So that is really important to do that. Same thing with the International Baccalaureate. We need to have the transcript right from International Baccalaureate. I don't know the timing. IB doesn't tend to, there aren't as much IB. International and St. John High is where I know IB to come from. There doesn't tend to be as much, but it's the same thing. If you feel like you've taken the full English intro already, if you've taken stats, for instance, if you've taken any of those subjects that you might then come and take in first year here, but you think you've got the university credit for them, it's okay. You can register on Monday, but just reach out and let us know that you think that those are coming, because we will switch. We don't want you to have the same course twice. And I want you to be able to enjoy the credits that you earned with your hard work doing AP or IB during high school, because it is a lot more. I have a son that did that. So I know that if you did the work, you deserve the credit. So just make sure you reach out if you think that's you. Okay.
And if it's okay, I'll just jump in, because we often have students who will reach out saying they're not sure what scores are required,
Okay. Yeah.
what types of courses, etc. So the long and the short of it is that for AP, we will consider the vast majority of AP courses for transfer, not all, but the vast majority. So like Allison said, if you think you may have an AP course that would qualify, by all means, reach out. We would be looking for a minimum score of 4. So either an AP score of 4 or 5. If you've already taken AP in grade 11 and you've already written the AP exams, then we can work with those early, which is awesome. But as Allison said, if you aren't writing those exams until May, and we're not going to get those scores usually until July or August, not anything is lost at all. Just be in touch with us and we'll work with you one-on-one to ensure that you're having everything squared away and keeping options open if you do get those credits. For IB, we're looking for higher level courses. So any higher level courses that you score a 5, 6, or 7 in would be eligible for at least transfer credit discussion. The vast majority of courses would transfer those. So please, just as Allison said, keep us in the loop and we will work with you to ensure that you have as many options open as you'd like. And on that note, I'm going to transition us over to the best part of tonight, questions. And I can see that we have quite a few. Some of them have been touched upon a bit throughout the presentation. Others are totally different and some are a little bit in between. So I'm going to address as many as we can, just because I know sometimes you would think your situation is a bit unique, but there are other people in the audience wondering the exact same thing. So we want to address all of those questions. The first question is easy. I will take it as a slow poke, as somebody who is on crutches during some of my time at St. Thomas. We have somebody who's wondering if they can get from point A to point B within the 10 minutes between classes. So specifically, they're wondering about Holy Cross to Edmund Casey, but truly, no matter what locations you're looking at on STU's campus, you can make it the 10 minutes in between courses, no issues, don't sweat it. Even when it's icy and I'm walking like a penguin to make sure I'm not slipping, you can easily make it across campus, no trouble. So don't sweat that or worry about it. Don't let it impede you from registering in courses that you're really interested in or that work really well together within your schedule. So I wouldn't worry about that. The second question we have is, are you able to take a 2000 level course as a first year student if there are no prerequisites for it? So I'm going to throw that to one of our academic advisors. It's a good question and one that we often get this time of year. So Allison, I will give that one to you.
Okay, and my answer to that is no, don't do it. You will do better in a 2000 level class after your first year. Can you take them? Yes, sometimes. If you can sign into it, you can take it. Should you do it? Probably not. The only two courses that I would say, and even then I still would wait, are the social work courses. I know people feel antsy if they're coming in, they're planning on applying for social work after there's two sections of the social work courses in each semester. One of them's online and one of them's in person. And I do believe there's quite a bit of room. And I think you can sign into those because they're introductions. You will do better in those courses. And especially if you're thinking social work, like really, like I wouldn't take them. You will do better in second level courses when you're in second level. So I hope you listen. But yes, you can. Doesn't mean you should. So try to use your discretion there.
And that's it. Discretion is key, and feel free to talk this out with your admissions counselor too. Sometimes it's nice just to have a sounding board, somebody who has some personal lived experience going through the process as a St. Thomas student, but also on the other side, helping students. And we always will loop in Kelly or Allison for more complicated questions as well, because they're really the experts on all of this. So don't hesitate to be in touch with us as you're making those individual decisions. Perhaps you see a 2000 level course that you're really itching to take in first year. Talk with us before you commit to it, just so we can look at the pros and cons and analyze that. So our next question is about Great Books. So we have somebody who is interested in kind of starting the Great Books program, but they're not sure that they want to commit to the Aquinas program. So what kind of options may be available for this student?
Kelly. I can take that one. So yes, understandable. Aquinas is a large chunk of your schedule. It is 3 out of your 5 classes in each semester taken. But there is another option for students that do want that sort of approach, that team taught approach, interdisciplinary, and that is, I don't know the title of it, Intro to Great Books is my guess, but it's GRBK 1006. And it is a full year Great Books intro course, so in first and second term. A lot of students would take courses that are complementary to Great Books. English is often taken with Great Books as well. You can take what would normally be taught in Aquinas together, but take those separately. There's a lot of different options that you can take. So that would be my suggestion if you really aren't sure if you want to commit to the Aquinas program, but you want that sort of experiences, you could try out the Great Books intro.
Excellent advice, Kelly. And we've had a lot of students who have taken that because it's a relatively new offering, and it does seem to give students a nice intro to Great Books, let them discover it without committing so many courses to that specific program. I believe the course is called Great Thinkers and Writers, or Writers and Thinkers, but whatever order I said first is probably incorrect. So let us know if you're looking for more information on that course, and we'd be happy to provide it in the chat. So Kelly, I have a question that I'm going to throw specifically to you due to your experience. So the pressure is on, but we have somebody who's coming in as a varsity athlete. So the question is, for varsity athletes whose sport is heavily competing in first semester, is it recommended to take 4 courses in semester 1? And further to that, are there any online courses for STU that would be available to students next year?
Okay, I'll answer that in 2 parts. So I mean, the beauty about St. Thomas is our deadlines really give you a chance to try things out before you fully have to commit to things. So in this case, what I'd recommend is starting with 5 courses and seeing how you manage the workload, because you have, I think, up until, I don't know the dates right off, but usually multiple weeks of class before you actually have to decide. Um, sorry, the deadline to drop classes, it's usually in November or late October. So you could start with 5 classes and see how you're managing the workload. And if you're finding it too much with your sports schedule, you could drop a class without academic penalty. So that means it's going to be removed from your transcript and you won't get a mark. If you wait that long, you won't be able to replace the course with another course. So you will be short credit hours. That would be my only concern, is if you started out with 4 courses instead of 5, you will have to make up a course along the way because you won't be on the normal kind of time period of graduating within 4 years unless you made up that class. So I would start with it, see what you think of it and managing the workload. And if you have to adjust along the way, you certainly can. And of course, we are here to help you kind of talk through this decision and see if it's going to be a good fit for you. You are still a full-time student, but if you have 3, 4, or 5 classes in a semester, to play sports, you need to have at least 3. You have to be a full-time student, so you have to have at least 3 courses in a schedule. So it is a personal choice. You do need to set yourself up for success and make sure that you have what you need, but you can start with 5 and lower it if you're finding the workload too much to try and balance everything. There was a question about online classes. I remember that. So yes, St. Thomas is offering some first year online classes this year. I think we have 7 or 8 each semester. I don't know which ones they are off the top of my head, but you'll notice them as you're searching in Stu Self-Service. The location and time, it'll say online, and there won't be a time period assigned. So that means that it won't conflict with any of your classes, and it's being delivered what we call asynchronously, which means that it's not a specific time period that you'll be able to access that course material on your own time to fit it in with your other school classes. Did I answer that question? I think the second part. Okay,
You sure did. Thank you
perfect.
so much, Kelly. That was awesome. So I have a question that I will just take. It's a bit more general about logging into self-service. So I know this is a point of confusion for students, and there's a reason why we kind of tier this whole process, right? We give you some time to look over the material, to engage with us and ask any of the questions that you have off the bat. And we also want to ensure that you can access all of your accounts without any issues. And it sounds like some students are having some issues logging into self-service, or they're just not sure how to go about that. So I'll recap what Kelly mentioned a bit earlier. If you log onto your applicant portal where you can see your offer of admission, congratulations. If you hit next steps, which is a tab right on your applicant portal, there will be at the very bottom of your next steps page, login credentials. So it will be a 5-letter username that sounds a bit made up. So like HFKNP, for example, and then below it will be your password, which will be a several-digit number. Now, what can sometimes throw students off is that for certain interfaces you use for St. Thomas, such as the Residence Life application or your Stu email, you need to add @stu.ca to your username. So for example, HFKNP @stu.ca. However, for self-service, you're just typing in that 5-letter username. So you just want to keep it HFKNP, no @stu.ca there, and then put your password below. What we also find at times is that some students have already changed that password early in the process. So perhaps they got really excited, they logged in to apply for residence, and then they changed their password to make their account more secure. That's great. But as soon as you do that, that password that's provided on your next steps tab will no longer work. So if you can't recall what you changed your password to and you're having a difficult time accessing self-service, feel free to get in touch with us, or you can get in touch with the IT services office at helpdesk@stu.ca. But when in doubt, feel free to go to your admissions counselor for kind of one-stop shopping, and we'll escalate anything to our colleagues that we need to. So on that note, I've got a couple of students specifically asking about journalism. So they're wondering if you have any recommendations for aspiring journalism majors and journalists within our audience today. So any courses that you think they may want to consider for first year registration?
I can, oh, we both are going to take this.
No, you can go. You go right ahead.
So there are two journalism introductory courses that I would recommend building into your schedule. Again, I'm better with course codes than names, so someone can certainly correct me, but it's journalism, JOUR 1023. I think it's called The Message. And the other one is Journalism 1113, Fundamentals of Writing. Those are two first year journalism courses that are going to allow you to take what you need to take in your second year of upper year journalism courses to continue on. The rest of your courses would come from non-journalism courses. So we want you to have the breadth in your degree in liberal arts. So you would have kind of the two journalism courses that you need to continue on next year, but the rest of your courses would be other introductory courses. There are some subjects that just blend really well with journalism that if you're really not sure what to take, a lot of people will take journalism alongside with communications. So you may also want to explore communications introductory courses. Um, and depending on what aspect of journalism you find interesting, if it's the political aspect, you may want to pair that with political science courses or history courses. There's so many combinations that, again, it goes back to the fact that there's no wrong answers or no wrong combination of courses that you can take. Um, for anybody who has a major in mind, not necessarily journalism, but if you've already gotten your acceptance and you know, like, these are subjects that I absolutely want to study, you want to make sure that you have the introductory courses in your first year to move on into second year courses in your second year. But you really can't do any more of those upper level courses until you get further in your degree. So the first year is all about taking introductory courses in a broad range of subjects to continue on. And if you don't know what you're majoring in, don't worry about it. That is the majority of you. It was me when I was a student. I really had no idea what I wanted to study. In fact, I thought it was journalism and then I changed my mind right before. So it's okay to not have those answers and to use this year just to explore and see what does pique your interest and where your passion lies. So there's people in all various stages of knowing what to study. And then there's some that think they know what they're going to study and then they get in there and they get, I don't know, Allison has shared the story that it was a chance meeting with a professor that completely changed the track of her academic career. So it's okay to also try new things and really keep your mind open and be prepared to be flexible if something kind of draws you in that you weren't expecting.
Well put, Kelly. And that's something that we get a lot of consternation and concern about this time of year. Like, students will have friends that are very confident in their trajectory and the major that they want to pursue, and they feel their friend feels inadequate for not knowing. But I would take what your friends are saying with a grain of salt, because so many of us come here thinking one thing, and then we get totally swept up and fall in love with a discipline that perhaps we never even heard of. I know I took an intro to sociology course in my first year just to round out my schedule because it fit really nicely for time with when I'm most productive. And that ended up being one of my majors. It was something that I had no real understanding of. There wasn't any intro to sociology in my high school, but that's the beauty of university, exactly as Kelly said, and it's such an exciting time. So on that note, we have some eager people who are looking to register as soon as possible. So somebody's wondering if course selection opens on midnight, Tuesday the 18th. So it actually opens at 12 noon. So we do that intentionally, knowing that we have students joining us from all across the globe, but that we have a higher percent who are joining us from the Atlantic time zone. So we try to do it at a time that you have a little bit of a break in school. Perhaps you have your lunch break at that time, and you also have access to our office with any questions or concerns that arise. So it will be Tuesday, April 18th at 12 noon that you'll be able to actually hit register on your courses. But as Kelly and Allison were mentioning earlier, you can pre-build that schedule in advance. So let us know if you're having any difficulty accessing self-service prior to that, and we can get you all squared away. Now, we are getting some more questions about Aquinas, and that makes good sense because it is a really unique kind of different program compared to the other course offerings that students may be considering. So just to clarify, and I know that this has been touched upon a bit, we have somebody who's wondering or just looking for confirmation that Aquinas is in fact 6 of your 10 courses for the school year. And that is in fact the case. So it would be 3 of your 5 first semester, and it would be 3 of your 5 second semester. So it is a big commitment. It does foster a lot of really meaningful discussion, lifelong friendships and relationships. If you really enjoy reading texts and applying them to current events and having a lot of in-depth discussions and kind of exploring these competing and controversial ideas about classic texts, then it can be a good fit for you. But because it is so much of your class schedule, we always just want students to kind of consider that as they're making their decision to take Aquinas, and let us know if they have any questions, because it is often a source of questions for incoming students. So we have some other questions that I think Kelly has spoken to without speaking to, and we just have students who are not trusting that there are not required courses. And I know it feels like we're bamboozling you because you're in high school. Oftentimes things are so prescribed and in many cases restrictive. And then you get to St. Thomas, and we really want to foster your passions and your curiosity. We want you to explore different subjects and ensure that you're not taking too many courses in one subject area or limiting yourself to a disciplinary perspective. But we can assure you there are not required courses as such. So in other words, we have some students who are wondering, do I have to take French? Is that a required course? The answer is no. If you aren't comfortable taking French at a university level, I personally get very anxious speaking foreign languages. So that wasn't the path for me. You don't have to. We're not going to make you do that. And then we have some other students wondering if they have to take English while they're here or another foreign language such as Spanish. That wouldn't be a requirement. But Kelly, I'm wondering if you want to elaborate on that. And then I have some other students speaking to their group A, B, C, D requirements. If you want to give us like a sneak preview, high level overview of that.
Sure. So yes, like Christy said, we're not bamboozling. That's a hard word to say. There's no trick here. There is nothing that's specifically required that you need to graduate from St. Thomas. So you don't need to have an English class. You don't need to have a math class. You don't need to have a French class. It really lets you build a schedule and play to your strengths here as a student. What we do have, so I'm not saying it's a free-for-all, there are some general guidelines that before you graduate at the end of 4 years or more, there are certain categories that you have to cover, but there's a lot of subjects within each category that oftentimes students get them without even trying or with very little planning. So you need 12 credit hours. So that's just 4 courses in the entire course of your degree from what we call Group A. So those are your humanities courses. English is there, all the languages are there, journalism, communications, human rights. So there's a broad range of subjects within that. Religious studies, I'm just naming them off the top of my head. 12 credit hours from that group over the entire course of your degree. Similarly, Group B is our social sciences. You just need 12 credit hours or 4 courses from Group B subjects. That includes, trying to think alphabetically, anthropology, criminology, psychology, all of the ologies, sociology, political science is there. I know I'm forgetting some, but your social science courses. Native studies is in there. From Group C and D, so there's 2 different groups. Group C is maths, science, environment, society. Group D is fine arts. Between the 2 groups combined, you just need 6 credit hours or 2 courses between any combo of Group C or D. So again, a lot of students will hit these without even trying. You don't have to cover these in your first year. You don't need to make sure that your groups are covered with all of your first year course selection. A lot of times that'll happen naturally over the course of your degree. Or if you find as you're getting in your 3rd and 4th year and you're short in one of the groups, then you can kind of put a little bit more focus in getting them. But yeah, it's meant to really give you that breadth, and you can select, again, courses that you're going to enjoy within those groups. So play to your strengths and make sure that you're enjoying what you're studying is kind of the big overarching theme there. Now, depending on what you're majoring in, there might be specific classes that you need within your major, but you do not need to even start thinking about those in your first year. Your first year, you just need to make sure that you're getting introductory courses of the subjects that you want to take.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Kelly. Wealth of knowledge. I am going to try to go through some of these questions really quickly just because they're fast. So the first one is, how do I apply for the Aquinas program? You don't actually need to apply if you've been admitted to the institution. We trust that you would be able to succeed in any course, but it just depends on what your skill sets are, what your strengths are, etc. So if you're interested in Aquinas, you're able to register in that without any problems. Of course, if you run into any tech glitches, let us know and we can assist you through those. We also have somebody who's wondering if it's problematic that they haven't taken any AP or IB courses. Absolutely not. The vast majority of incoming students haven't taken AP courses or IB courses. In many cases, those offerings are restricted to certain schools. We know that, so that's of course not an admission requirement. Don't at all feel like you're behind students if you don't have either of those. That's no trouble at all. You are in keeping with the majority of incoming students. So we have somebody who is keen to sign up for more than 5 courses. So I'm wondering if you folks want to speak to what kind of advice you would give somebody. This student in particular is looking to take 7 in their first semester. Oftentimes we get questions from students who are looking to take 6. So I'm wondering if you folks want to address that kind of concern.
Yeah, you can't take 7 courses ever in a semester, so no. The most you can take is 6, and usually we don't let first year students take 6 courses. It's a little different if you're registered in one of those 1 credit hour courses, then yes, or in those, like if you're in odd courses to balance things out to make sure you're getting 30 credit hours. You might have what looks like an overload, but we generally don't let students take overload. You have to have a certain GPA to do overload, and we like you to have a year under your belt because there's not really any requirement, any necessity to do that. You need to have a good solid first year. So no to 7. You can never take 7 at once, but you can sometimes take 6, depending.
Perfect. Thanks, Allison. And I'm actually going to ask you the next question as well. So we have a student who's joining us who was contacted with some transfer credit, and they're wondering how they should go about the registration process. So if they're able to go into self-service or if they need to go through an academic advisor, how may that process look the same or different for somebody with transfer credit?
It depends on how many transfer credits you have. If you've got, below 21 transfer credits, absolutely go in and register and then reach out to academic advising, and we'll just go and check and make sure you're not, don't take anything you've already taken, kind of thing. If you have more than 21, you should reach out to academic advising, and you can work with either Kelly or myself, and we'll get you right. We'll talk about what you want to do. We'll talk about how the credits have come over. We'll get it all worked out, and then we'll help you register. And that's what you should do. And you could do that like right away.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Allison.
You're welcome.
A couple of students who are interested in pursuing a degree in education in their future, and they're wondering if there's anything that they should consider taking as early as their first year to position them for that track. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I could talk to that. The thing about education is that you need to have your degree done first, right? And then you apply for education. So yes, there are things you need to have, but they're not specific things. You need to have teachable subjects. You need to have a smattering of courses in your first year. So the most important thing is to find subjects that you like, right? First of all, then you come in and talk to us, and if they're teachable subjects, great. And if not, then we talk about how to get the teachables along the way. So it's a little more complicated than just the right courses. It really requires you to be here for a little bit of time. Like, you can have that idea, you can come in and talk to us about education, but there is a list of teachable subjects, and you have to have like so many teachables in order to apply to education. So it's entirely possible to do that, even if you major in something that's not a teachable. So there's no panic, and that's a good conversation to come and sit down face to face and have with us in September to learn a little bit more about it. But you should not worry. You should register for exactly what you want, because you need a really high GPA to get into education. And so you have to make sure you're taking things you like. And in order to do that, you need to find them. first. And so that it's more complex than just the right courses. It really does take a little bit of time to figure that out. But you're definitely on the right track. You're coming to the right place.
Perfect. And we have a smattering of questions from students who are interested in subjects that do not at least appear to be directly related. And they're wondering, A, can they complete a double major? And B, if they're completing a double major, do those subjects need to be closely, explicitly linked with one another? So what do you folks think about that?
I love that it's broad. There's absolutely no need for your subjects to be related to each other. I had two majors, actually, history and Spanish, not related at all. I think one course had to do with history of Latin America. Other than that, they were completely separate. They were just two subjects that I really enjoyed. Um, so sometimes your interests will naturally coincide and there'll be a nice little overlap perhaps, but sometimes that doesn't work at all and you're just drawn to two different subjects. Completely okay. Either are fine. Um, and we had a question about double majoring in there. So typically a major at St. Thomas is 36 or 39 credit hours of specific requirements for that subject. Allison had mentioned earlier that your degree overall is 120 credit hours. So because of that, I mean, the math works out that you could complete the requirements for two subjects to get a major within your degree. And the same thing, you could end up with a major and a minor, or a major and two minors. It really all depends on what your interests are, what the subjects are, and how much courses you want to commit to each subject within your 120 credit hour degree. So there's no right combo, there's no combo that's better than the other. It depends on you and what you want to do with it, and your goals and your interests. You don't need minors to graduate in your degree, but you need to have at least a major. So good to kind of in your first year start thinking about subjects that really draw you in.
Excellent. And on that note, we have somebody who's wondering if they can register in introductory courses for which they haven't completed a high school level course. And I know Kelly is already looking to answer that question. I'll just kick her off by saying there are so many subjects we offer at STU that are not offered at any high schools I'm familiar with across the globe that we work with. So we would really be limiting our students if that was a requirement. Kelly, I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, no, I was just going to highlight the same thing is definitely try new things. That's what your university course experience is all about, is to see like intro to gerontology. What even is that? Sure, I'll give it a shot and try it. And Christy's laughing because she fell in love with gerontology. So yeah. Absolutely. There's only a couple courses that I think would be helpful to have some background. French is one of them, and it specifically says, I think our calculus math course does require you to have a little bit of a background, but those are few and far between. The majority of our classes aren't expecting you to have any type of background or knowledge going into it because we'll give you that in the introductory course.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. And I have a question from a student who is considering pursuing further studies in psychology. They're wondering if they should take both Psych 1013 and 1023, or if they should choose between one or another.
Great question. You do need both introductory psychology courses, Psych 1013 and Psych 1023, but it doesn't matter what order you take them in. So you could get 1013 in one semester and 1023 in the other semester, or vice versa. We don't typically recommend you taking both intro to psych in the same semester, just because it can be a little bit challenging to keep the two courses separate. It is a lot better strategically to separate them one semester and the other semester. So whichever sections of those classes fit best into your schedule will be how you can help structure your courses.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. This always gets me so exciting. It's just so Wonderful to see students who have been thinking through what their interests are and what their passions are actually get serious about it and start reading through course descriptions and building what their life next year will look like in their course schedule. So thank you so much for facilitating that. We did receive a question about campus tours. So somebody was wondering if there will be more opportunities to come to campus to better understand what campus looks like, all of that. The answer is a resounding yes. So we have campus tours, I don't want to say 24/7, 365, but we do have them throughout the entire year. We have them most Saturdays, and we have some evening campus tours as well. Suffice it to say, we will do what we can to accommodate you. So even if you're looking at our booking page and there isn't a time that works with your schedule, perhaps you're in a time zone where you don't have access to internet at a certain time, etc., just let us know and we can accommodate you on kind of a one-off personalized basis. But for the vast majority of students, they can book a personalized campus tour, whether that be virtual or in person at stu.ca/campus tour. And from there, you can choose a day or time that works well for you. And as I mentioned, just reach out to us if none of those do work with your schedule. I'll also mention that we have an upcoming accepted student day/weekend. So you'll be receiving more information about that after the course registration process. We're just trying to hit you with a small amount of information at once so it doesn't become too overwhelming. But if you want to save the date, it would be on May 26th and May 27th. And that will be a day that will allow you to explore campus, perhaps if you haven't yet been here, and reacquaint yourself with campus now that it's becoming a bit more real and you've built your schedule, all of that. So we would love to have you there. And like I said, more information will be forthcoming for that. And of course, we have a bunch of other events taking place for course registration specifically. So perhaps you've had all of your questions answered today. That's wonderful. But then you hop on self-service and some questions arise as you're actually putting yourself into that schedule builder. That is totally normal. So we would encourage you to join us for our course registration Q&A. And that session will be really informal, really relaxed and conversational. We're not going to have a presentation or anything like this. So we're not going to have a redundant session, but rather it will just be there for you to get guaranteed instant answers to your questions about course registration as they've come up. We also will have a course registration webinar that's just a student panel taking place on Wednesday, April 26th. So again, this is not formal. Tonight was your more formal programming, but that session will just be really hearing from current students about their experiences, perhaps their gerontologies that they took and had no idea what they were and fell in love with. And sometimes that information can be helpful or just make you feel a little bit more confident in the choices that you've already made. I find oftentimes it just gets you more and more excited for what's to come in the fall. Of course, throughout this entire process, all of our admissions counselors, including myself, are here to support you. So we're happy to be your first point of contact with questions that you have, whether they're about course registration, or I saw there were some in the chat that the admissions counselors took that were pertaining to residents, or if you're having some problems with your accounts, whatever your questions may be. Don't hesitate to contact your admissions counselor. We're all here because we love hearing from students. So don't hesitate to be in touch with us. If you're not sure who your admissions counselor is, we have a handy dandy website that kind of goes through all of us and what territories and regions we work with. But the bottom line is feel free to contact any staff member at St. Thomas. And if we're not the appropriate staff member to assist you, we'll just link you to our colleague who is. So please don't worry about whether or not you're contacting the proper person. And then something that we found a lot of students have enjoyed doing this year, just because they're already on the app, is messaging us on Instagram. So we do have an admissions and recruitment specific Instagram account called Stu Beginnings. If you're looking for information that is not just pertaining to the broader St. Thomas community, but is really focused in on incoming students, what your needs may be, what your questions are, etc., that's a really good page to follow. So I would encourage you to reach out to us there, ensure that you give it a follow. But really, however you want to contact us, feel free. My contact information is here. So as I mentioned, I'm happy to hear from you folks. And if I can't help you or I'm not the appropriate person to, I'd be happy to connect you with one of my wonderful colleagues like Allison and Kelly, who are experts in what they do. But with all of that said, we are winding down for the night, which is really exciting. It means we're that much closer to course registration. So on that note, I would like to thank Kelly, Allison, and all of our admissions counselor team for taking some time out of their nights here in Atlantic Canada to talk with you folks. We are truly so excited to have you all on campus at once and get to know you as people, not just through this admissions process, but what your academic passions are, and see what your contributions to campus are. So we are thrilled to help you along the way to get to that point, and don't hesitate to be in touch with us between now and then. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us. Best of luck with course registration, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.